Hey, Joey Starr here. Today I'm going to go see a great show in Connecticut. It's Alice Cooper and Ace Frehley. They're playing at the Hartford Healthcare Amphitheater in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I don't know much about it, but it's a new venue that opened up this July 2021. It's an outdoor venue, so they've predicted that their season's going to be May through October. And of course, we're in September now, so this is going to be the first national act that I've seen since the pandemic. The last show that I was supposed to see was Overkill. They were playing in New Jersey. And what happened was pretty much the couple of weeks leading up to that show, this was supposed to be March of 2020, things started to get a little crazy with the spread of COVID. I mean, this is when it was first starting, so there were some guidelines in effect, but people didn't know what to make of it. And I remember like not even a whole week before the show, people were questioning whether or not to go to shows at all. And I even contacted the venue. And it was just like, what kind of precautions are you taking? Is there temperature checks or whatever? And then, of course, they emailed back saying, they're going to take whatever precautions are recommended by the CDC. Just a little personal note, I was supposed to have surgery a few days after that show. So I was kind of questioning whether or not I should go at all. It's like, if I get sick, I'll have to put off the surgery. And then if, like, some states were already starting to go into lockdown, but New York had not yet gone into lockdown. So I was like, if I don't get the surgery now because I'm sick, I may not be able to get it for a while because, New York might go into a lockdown, New York and New Jersey. So then a couple of days later, basically like 4 or 5 days before the show was supposed to happen, it was postponed. And in fact, the show still hasn't come back, but it's scheduled for November. So hopefully things stay on track. And if so, I'll try to make a video for that too. Let's talk about Alice Cooper for a minute. My first exposure to Alice Cooper was when I was a little boy, watching TV. First, I had seen him on the Hollywood Squares. My mom used to like to watch Hollywood Squares. There was this guy, bear in mind, I was like a toddler. Surprisingly, I can still remember it. But I was a toddler, and here's this guy kind of, looking different. Hollywood Squares were all these like mainstream celebrities. And here comes this guy out of left field. He's just kind of relaxed back, and he's got his makeup on, he's dressed in leather. And he was just like, to a toddler, never seen this before in Hollywood Square. It was pretty weird. That's about all I remember about Hollywood Squares. Then later, and my memory's a little fuzzy because I was really young, but I think it was a year or so later, or a couple of years later, he showed up on The Muppet Show. Something to bear in mind is that I didn't know at the time that he was a musician. I didn't know who he was. I knew his name was Alice Cooper because that really stood out to me as that guy, that weird guy in Hollywood Squares. That's not to say that I didn't hear stuff on the radio, but I was so young, I didn't put the two and two together. I think that I heard like Nowhere Mr. Nice Guy and maybe a couple other songs, Welcome to My Nightmare or whatever. Whatever he had out at the time. Probably heard it on the radio. Didn't really know him. Shows up on the Muppets, and honestly right now I can't even remember anything about his appearance on the Muppets other than he was there. And I know there was some kind of interaction with Kermit. Well, other than that, I remember nothing. Well, I also remembered that it was kind of a brilliant episode. I remember that. I remember enjoying it very much. So, there was a spark of interest in this strange Halloween-ish looking guy named Alice Cooper. That's when I was a toddler. My mom really liked him. And it's not even that she was into that like creepy rock stuff that he was playing, but he had put out this song at the time that was a big hit. It was called You and Me, and she loved the song. She adored the song. Pretty much my whole life, she would always talk about that one Alice Cooper song that really hooked her. When I really started to get into Alice Cooper was in the late 80s. I remember being at a friend's house, and one of the things we used to do is hang out in each other's bedrooms and listen to rock and metal music. My friend had gotten a cassette of the album Constrictor. I remember he said, "Hey, look, I have the latest Alice Cooper album." And I'm like, "Alice Cooper? That's that weird guy from the Hollywood Squares or whatever." So he puts it on, and I was blown away. I mean, it was great. It was great mainstream metal music at the time, like late 80s metal, the kind of stuff you hear on horror movie soundtracks. And to me, it was just beautiful. He had a song called Teenage Frankenstein. That was like the first thing that got me hooked. I think that was, if I'm not mistaken now, it was either the opening track or the second track on the album. And I was just like, wow, that is freaking great. And more importantly, the ending of that album has what is one of my all-time favorite soundtrack cuts from a big performer, The Man Behind the Mask, which was basically the theme song for Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. The Man Behind the Mask was basically the theme song for that movie, and it's a great song, catchy, and it's just great. So that really piqued my interest. And then not long after that, he came out with an album called Trash. And basically it was just like the who's who of hard rock and metal at the time. He has so many guest stars. And he wrote a lot of the songs with Desmond Child, and the songs are just brilliant. I mean, it's probably one of his best commercial albums of all time, if not best album of all time. I don't know if it's best selling or not, but it was a damn good seller. It definitely went at least platinum or multiple platinum, and very memorable songs. And I was hooked. I was just like, hey, Alice Cooper's the man. He's awesome. And then another thing that clinched me as a fan of Alice, there was a movie out called Shocker. Wes Craven's Shocker. Kind of campy 80s movie, fun movie. Love that movie. As a matter of fact, I need to rewatch it. It's been forever since I've seen it. But one of the really cool things about that movie in particular is that it had this amazing soundtrack. If you were a metal fan at the time, Shocker was the album to get because there was so many great surprises in there. Things from like my favorite artists being on there to little supergroup compilations getting together. For example, the main song for Shocker, the opening track, and Paul Stanley as one of the singers on the song. And to me, like, I was a very big Kiss fan at the time. I was just like, whoa, this is awesome. This is amazing. Alice is on it too. And Alice's influence can be heard not just on songs that he wrote, but even on other songs. It's just, the style, his influence on. Perfect example, Iggy Pop has a track on there called Love Transfusion. I can't think of a better example of a mainstream rocker imitating well Alice Cooper. It was great. I mean, it's my favorite Iggy Pop track of all time. The very last time I saw Alice Cooper live, and this is actually the only time I've seen Alice Cooper live until tonight, is Operation Rock and Roll, where he was on tour with Motorhead and Dangerous Toys and Judas Priest and Metal Church. Let me tell you something. Fantastic show. Maybe not the best show I've ever seen, best rock show, but definitely up there. As far as presentation goes, second to none. Alice puts on a hell of a show. Very theatrical, creative. It's like you feel like you're in this great anthology series of all these like great stories. His songs become stories, and he acts them out, and the props, the stage antics. I mean, I saw him at this. Basically, it was a raceway stage, so it was a little small outdoor venue, and he still brought enough props. It had enough stuff going on that you felt like you were in this great big arena. Just to give you an idea how larger than life his shows are. Quick fun fact: that show was 30 years ago. My general view of Alice is I have great respect for him as a rock pioneer, even as a current artist. The man's 73 years old and he's still out there doing it. I have no doubt that tonight's going to be an amazing show because I've come to expect that from him. Throughout the years, I've kept up with all his albums, his studio releases. He puts out a live release. I'll usually get that too, or watch videos. He always brings it. He always brings his A game, and he is always on point. One of the things I think that makes Alice very accessible to most fans is that if you're paying attention to his lyrics, he's not one of these like super artistic, deep philosophical lyric writers. His lyrics are very, he has some songs that are like that, but generally speaking, his writing voice lyrically is very much like an everyday man, So it feels like, when he's singing those lyrics, it's like you and me expressing ourselves. I think that kind of down-to-earth, everyday man lyric is what makes him a big part of his success because people can identify with his songs very easily. Let's take a moment to talk about Ace Frehley. Basically, how I started getting into Ace Frehley was I had gotten into Kiss, of course, because that's the band that got him his big start. When I was a kid, my mom had these little compilation albums on 8-track. But I remember being a wee little boy, and my mom popping in these 8-tracks, and it was things like hits of the 1970s, that sort of thing, kind of thing you would see on these little infomercials. She had a couple of those, and each of them had like one or two Kiss songs. So my first exposure to Ace, musically at least, was songs like Rock and Roll All Night, Christine 16. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Love Gun was also on there as well. I would also hear Kiss songs on the radio, those same Kiss songs, probably a couple others like Dr. Love or whatever Kiss had out on the radio at the time. I'd hear that on the radio too, so musically that was my exposure to Ace. I may not have known Ace specifically, like, hey, Ace Frehley's one of the band members, but I knew it was Kiss and I knew the songs. Wasn't a fan like I became later yet, it was just, hey, Mom was listening to this, I like those songs. And she liked them too, so I was a fan by association. And then visually, the first time that I can specifically remember seeing Ace Frehley on screen was they had put out that movie, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park. Saw Ace on there for the little bits that he was on in the movie. We'll probably make another video about that at another time. You know, that was my first exposure to seeing Kiss visually. You know, Ace was part of that, so I saw that. And then a few years later, when I was I guess I was a preteen, when I was in elementary school, I don't remember getting it, but I remember for many years having a Kiss poster on my wall. If I'm not mistaken, it was the 1982 to 83 version of Kiss, you know, still in makeup. The last incarnation of Kiss with makeup for a while. Up until that point, Ace Frehley, matter of fact, you know, I didn't know at the time, but that was actually going to be Ace Frehley's last run with Kiss for a long time. So he was up on my wall with the others. It was one of the Creatures of the Night posters, not album cover, but like, you know, photo shoots. It was great. Now, when I actually started to get into Kiss was when I was in high school. They were still around without makeup and stuff, but got into this circle of friends that were these glam rock and hard rock fans, and Kiss was near the top of the list of their favorites and became top of the list of my favorites. So that's when I really started to get to know Ace's playing style and some of his songwriting, even some of his singing. Songs like Shock Me and Pull Gin, you know, stuff they'd written. I love those songs, you know, as I loved all their songs. Kiss is actually one of my biggest influences as far as becoming a musician, getting to music, wanting to do that, and getting involved in music. So Ace Frehley was a part. It wasn't him specifically that says, hey, I want to be like, it wasn't that I wanted to be like Ace Frehley, I really wanted to be something like Kiss, and he was a part of that. So if it wasn't for him and what he started with the other three members of the band, you might not be seeing me right now recording for a music channel. Then I got into the Kiss solo albums at one point. Now bear in mind, this is many years after this had come out, because I was a teenager already, and you know, the solo albums came out when I was really small. Now, throughout the years with the Kiss solo albums, the 4 solo albums, whichever one was my favorite at any given time, it would rotate. But first starting off, listening to those albums for the first time, all 4 of them, Ace's was the solo album that I felt was the most impactful on me as a fan. Each Kiss member, they had their own ideas of what they wanted the album to be, you know, what they wanted to express. And I feel like Ace wanted to express, hey, I'm a great songwriter, I can sing, I can groove, and I'm responsible. I'm definitely an important part of Kiss's sound. And he proves it on that album, because out of the 4 solo albums, and this is not to knock the others, because I actually love all 4 albums, but Ace, and I think Paul Stanley had even said this in the past too, but Ace definitely put out the most Kiss sounding solo album out of the 4. And to this day, I mean, if I'm going through my rotation and Ace Frehley's solo album comes out, oh yeah, let me listen to that. It's exciting, right? Great songs, great songwriting. He really like shows that he's a power unto himself with that solo album. And then after he left Kiss and formed Frehley's Comet, I remember when I came out, and again, the same friends that introduced me to Kiss and Alice Cooper, you know, modern day Alice Cooper, and so many other things, they were like, hey, Ace Frehley has a new band out called Frehley's Comet. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, he goes, yeah, let's put it on. And I gotta tell you, that album just blew me away. I was just like, wow. The songs were catchy, they were rocking, well written. The production on the album was great. I don't remember the year. I want to say 87, maybe 87, 88 when that came out. I'm going off the top of my head. I probably should have looked all this stuff up before I started shooting the video. But whenever it came out, it was what I needed to hear at the time from Ace. Thank you, Ace. That was awesome. Just like he says on the song Rock Soldiers, which is the opening track on that album, he says in there a couple times, Ace is back, and I told you so. Yes, you did, and yes, you were back. in full force. Quick side story, I want to talk about like Ace Frehley live now. When I was 17 years old, I was working at this diner in South Fallsburg called Poppins. I had made a friend there with one of the cooks. His name is Steve. We would always talk. That's when I really started getting into all these bands, 80s rock bands, metal bands, And we'd talk about everything, Motley Crue, Ozzy, of course, Kiss. And it turns out that Ace Frehley was coming to a semi-local venue called The Chance. He wanted to bring me to it. Now, I hadn't been to many concerts at the time, so he's like, yeah, I want to take you to Ace Frehley. Now, the thing about The Chance is, it's a club, it's a nightclub, full theater, but nightclub. And certain shows, like that show, you had to be 18 or over to get in. I was only 17. So Stevie had told me, hey, listen, he goes, here's what we're going to do. I'll drive us up there. You bring your ID to prove your age. And I'll talk to the guy. I'll explain to the guy at the door, hey, listen, I'm responsible for this kid. He's going to be 18 in like another month or so. He's a diehard Kiss fan, loves Ace Frehley. I just want to really, I want to give him a chance to see him while he's here, to see him while Ace is here. It means the world. He won't drink, I won't drink. I'll take full responsibility. We'll go in, we'll watch the show, we'll leave right away. You don't have to worry about anything. That was his plan. I kind of had my own plan for the weeks leading up to. Now, I had been able to grow facial hair pretty much from when I was 14 or 15 years old. So I decided to just let it grow. It was summertime, so I was just letting it grow, and I was getting all scraggly and stuff. And despite my intentions and my beliefs, I wasn't able to grow a full beard. But it was more than 6 o'clock shadow. There was, you can definitely see that somebody was growing a beard. So my plan was like, hey, I'll go with the beard and I'll just look old enough anyway. They probably won't even card me, because at that time it was more of a suggestion than a requirement to ID people at shows like that. Bar owners and bouncers, they would use their better judgment. They would really only card you if they had doubts. So I figured, hey, he's going to see this. He's going to think I'm like 20, 21, and I'll just get right in. Yeah, who needs that stupid ID anyway? So, like an idiot, I left the ID at home because I was cocky. I was like, yeah, I'm going in with my beard because I'm the man. Anyways, whole drive up, Stevie's saying, oh, yeah, we're going to get there, and, we're going to, talk to the guy. And, just basically what I explained before, that plan will work, right? You're all ready for that, right, Joey? I'm like, yeah, Steve, yeah, we'll get there, we'll get right in. I was just kind of glazing over the fact that my ID wasn't with me. Until we were within eye shot of the club. We already parked the car, we're walking up towards the entrance, we're probably, 100 feet away. You can see the line of people like going in. He's like, hey Joey, all right, get your ID out. And I'm just like, I don't have it with me. He's like, what was that? I was like, I didn't bring my ID, Steve. He was like, what? No, you're f***ing with me. Show me, come on, Joey, bring out your ID. I want to talk to the guy. I was like, nah, dude, my ID's at home. He's like, what? He's like, boy, I'm going to kick a spark out your ass. So he was pissed off. He was just like, you know what? You hang on here. I'm going to talk to the guy. He goes, but I'm pretty much sure we're not getting in. So he kind of has me stand about 10 feet away. He goes up, talks to the guy. I see them pointing at me. And I can see the bouncer shaking his head. He's like, no way. So I didn't get in. And in case you're interested, Stevie did not kick a spark out my ass. Basically, in all honesty, looking back, he could have left my stupid ass in the car to wait for him while he enjoyed the show. And in hindsight, it would have been okay. I probably would have been pissed at the time, but I would have forgiven him because you know what? It's my fault. It's my fault. We drove like a good 90 minutes away to get to this show. But Stevie is actually a pretty good guy. His heart's always in the right place. He was just like, all right, man, come on, let's go get something to eat and we'll just go home. So thanks, Steve. Thanks for being a real adult and dealing with me being a real cocky little teenage kid. So I didn't get to see Ace Frehley then, but I did get to see Ace Frehley 3 times. Eventually, it took many years, but I ended up seeing him one time back. It's actually only a few years ago at the Starland Ballroom over in Sayreville, New Jersey. I can't even tell you who opened for him, but great show. What was particularly great about that show is that in that lineup, he had Richie Scarlett with him too. I tell you, as great as Ace is, when he's on stage with Richie Scarlett, everything just amplifies. They have such an amazing chemistry together. So, seeing him with Richie Scarlett, you have a chance to do it if they ever do it again. go for it. I'm telling you, the best Ace shows has Richie backing him up. Just to tell you the truth. And then, believe it or not, I saw him 2 other times at the Chance Theater. Yes, that same theater where that story occurred, where I didn't get in because I didn't bring my ID. In fact, I remember the first time seeing him at the Chance, making a Facebook post and tagging Stevie in the comments saying, "Hey, I finally got in to see Ace and I brought my ID." The second time I had seen Ace at the Chance was actually the very last time I saw him. It was like 2019, okay? So about 2 years ago. And the reason why that's important to note is because after the show, my friend Greg and I, we had this ritual after shows to, go eat somewhere, usually a diner because it's, it's late. So the best food you're going to find at that time of night is going to be a diner, of course. So we went to the Alexis Diner, which is in Newburgh. While we were there, Ace and some of his people actually came into the place. Now I know you're thinking, holy you went and saw him and then you got to meet him at a diner. Well, not exactly. Here's the thing. Ace came in with his people. He looked really distraught. He had a lot on his mind. Obviously, he wasn't in a good mood. I was like, well, let me see what happens. I'm gonna let my instincts guide my actions, because the truth of the matter is, people, is that I've met a lot of celebrity musicians. I've even jammed with a couple. I've met plenty of people from the upper ground like Ace in the past, and the thing that you have to remember is that they're people, just like you and I. So, and because they're people, because they're human beings, they're prone to things like different moods, situations, stress, all the stuff. And I find that most of my interactions with celebrities are very positive because I treat them like they're just somebody that I know. They're just people. Because they are just people. And when push comes to shove, it's not that they don't enjoy fame and definitely don't mind making the money. When push comes to shove, they want to be people because they are people. And this guy just played a show, he's tired, and obviously has some serious stuff in his mind. So the last thing I want to do is disturb him. The last thing I want to do is have a bad experience with one of my heroes. So I see him come in, I'm like, all right, whatever, we'll see what happens, play it by ear. Maybe I'll have a chance to talk to him, say hello, maybe get an autograph or something. And, I'm sitting at the table with Greg, and I'm just like, I said, I'm really excited that Ace is here. I need to go to the bathroom. So I go into the bathroom, I'm there, and washing my hands. And while I'm washing my hands, now there's a big mirror in front of me. And behind me, I can see Ace and, some dude. I don't know if it's his bodyguard or just, somebody that to run interference. But I see Ace walking in. I'm like, oh my God, I'm in the bathroom with Ace Frehley. And I'm thinking to myself, I was like, well, I've seen Ace in interviews. I kind of understand his personality. I was like, I'm not going to approach him in the bathroom. It's just not the right thing to do. And I'm pretty sure he's not going to appreciate it. I was like, you know what? He's here. If it's meant to be, he'll sit at a table or something. It's all right. And plus, the other thing too is that I'm sitting there, my hands are already washed. I got to dry my hands. And the guy that Ace came in, he's kind of like, I can see him from the mirror. He's kind of looking at me like, why is this guy stalling? So I get out of the bathroom, I go sit at my table. I tell Greg, hey Greg, Ace is in the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of fills me in on how, oh yeah, he and his people have a table over there. I can see that seems like he's in a bad mood. He was on the phone and he was arguing with somebody. He goes, I don't think he's in a good mood. It's like, all right, well, maybe we shouldn't approach him then. It's one of our heroes, but the thing is, I want to respect the man's. He's not working right now. He's not on stage. He's not at the venue with a meet and greet. Let's respect him as a human being. That was my thought. And Ace, if you ever see it as a whole, I hope that you see that and truly know that I respect you as a guitar player and as a performer and a singer, and that I had this opportunity, right or wrong, I had this opportunity to go and approach you, and I chose not to out of respect. But anyway, we're sitting at the table, he's coming back from the bathroom, and of course, because his table's behind me like this, he's got to pass my way. Now there's 2 aisles. There's one aisle that's right by us, and where most people are sitting, and there's the other aisle where you can go around and get to that table that has the least amount of people. So of course, Ace took that route. But as he's going by, there's a point where I'm looking at him, and he probably felt my eyes on him and Greg's eyes on him. So he looked up, and we made eye contact for a brief second, and it just happened. It was a reaction. I was like, hey, Ace Frehley. And you can tell that, let me preface this by saying he wasn't being a dick at all. He wasn't being a dick at all to me. He was just like, oh, hey, how you doing? Standoffish, but not in a rude way. Just kind of he wanted to acknowledge that I recognize him, but he was kind of like, his body language was just like, oh, please don't approach me. I can't deal with this right now. So, and I said something like cool or good or whatever, and, and I just let him go. So, and that was it. One of my other friends was at the diner, and sometime between when he left the bathroom and when I said, hey, Ace Frehley, she had approached him. Now, bear in mind, I didn't witness it because it was on the other side of the diner, close to where the bathroom was, because it's a huge diner. According to her, he kind of yelled at her a bit for bugging him. So I don't know the circumstances. I'm not blaming her, and I'm also not blaming him because I didn't see it. What do I know? Who am I to judge? But the point is, that kind of proved to me that I made the right call to not just like come up like a crazed fan, like, oh my God, Ace Frehley, I've been like, I've been keeping an eye on you since the 1970s. I've been keeping an eye on you since I was a little boy. Nah, it wasn't the time. If I ever meet Ace again, maybe I'll tell him that story and he'll appreciate it. So now, my general view on Ace. Well, okay. So as a musician, Ace may not be the best guitar player you'll ever hear. He's definitely not the worst guitar player you ever hear. But he's a hell of a showman. He's a great songwriter. The thing about Ace's solos that makes him stand out from even these guitar players that are like virtuosos is that Ace's style of guitar solos that, when you're listening to a song, you have this melody going on, that's the song, the structure of the song. And when it's time for Ace to put his licks out there, he basically composes a melody as his guitar solo. He's not just ripping in key. He actually puts a melody on top of an existing melody. And what happens is, that melody almost acts like, it's similar to a lead vocal in a verse. It acts like an expression on top of what's going on musically. So what that does is for a fan, not just non-musicians, even for musician fans, is that his solos are very memorable. Like if you go and think about any classic Kiss song, whether it's Love Gun or Deuce or I'm trying to throw some songs out here that I didn't already mention, Strutter, even on like Shock Me, these songs, non-musician fans will remember these solos note for note because that's how memorable his solos are, and that's something that you cannot take away from Ace. That there's a special talent for writing solos like that. And also, speaking as a musician and speaking, mechanically, I tell you, Ace is one of the true modern kings of the pentatonic scale. I'm telling you, man, that Jimi Hendrix influence is very strong in him. If you pick apart one of his solos, you'll hear what I'm talking about. When a guy gets a chance to really rip, I'm telling you, you hear those pentatonic scales. I mean, he knows them. It's to the point where he can't screw it up. That's how good he is. So anyway, what's going to happen today is I'm going to stop blabbing here on this intro. I'm going to go take a trip out to Connecticut, show you what it's like to go to a big show in this new normal post-lockdown in 2021. Give you an idea of what it's like from the fan side of it all. So I'll see you later.